Now, a public inquiry into the deaths of thousands of people infected with contaminated blood starts today.
At least 4,689 people contracted HIV, hepatitis C or both after receiving tainted blood imported from the US.
Well, the scandal took place throughout the 70s and 80s and remains the greatest in the history of the NHS. The inquest opened with video tributes and acknowledgements of the victims of contamination.
I wanna shout, I wanna scream till the words dry out. So put it in all of the papers. I'm not afraid. They can read all about it. Read all about it. Oh, 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 oh.
Let's turn to our health correspondent, Paul Kelso, who's outside the inquiry. Paul, in terms of what we'll see in forthcoming months, there won't be a focus on a place as there would be, for instance, in the wake of a stadium disaster. This instead will focus on hundreds, nay, thousands of people and their individual experiences.
Yes, it will. This inquiry is forecast to take at least 2 years, possibly as long as 5 years, to get to the bottom of events that happened, some cases almost 40 years ago. And you're right in saying that this whole scandal of contaminated blood has lacked a focus until today, perhaps, when more than 500 people, those affected by this because they've lost family members, or those infected and living with the consequences of infected blood products or transfusions, came together for that commemorative event, which we saw a little excerpt of there. It is the first time there's been a moment where they could stand together, those who received transfusions that were infected because of failings in the UK blood screening system, or those haemophiliacs largely who were infected by blood products, things given to them to help their blood clot that was imported from the United States, where it was contaminated with HIV, hepatitis C, because it had been sourced from drug users, from prisoners and others who'd been paid for their blood. So this is the first time they've had a chance to mark it publicly, and some very, very affecting testimony in videos that were played, people calling for a cover-up that they believe has gone on here. Allegations that go back several decades that the government or officials attempted to cover up the worst excesses of this scandal. People talking about manslaughter, people talking about living with death sentences. Remembering here, people were given these transfusions or these blood products without any warning, without any sense that they might go on to be affected in this way, and often for the most routine procedures. Haemophiliacs undergoing dentistry, being given blood factor products, or indeed people who I've spoken this morning to a woman who was infected by a transfusion she received when she was delivering her first child. Michelle Tolley has since campaigned very hard for this inquiry. She only found out 3 years ago she was infected. This is what she told us this morning.
That I had been infected with hepatitis C. I actually thought I was going to die. I couldn't see past a coffin. If that happened to me, how many more of me are walking out there? How many people's aunties, mums, cousins, work colleagues might possibly have that infection and not know?
You get a sense there of the scale of the number of people infected. People may still be walking around having received blood transfusions 20 years ago and not knowing that they're carrying hepatitis C. And you do get a sense there have been families affected, children infected by fathers, wives, partners, and so on. This is a moment that many people have been waiting a long time for. This afternoon, the real business of the inquiry proper will begin when Sir Brian Langstaff, the retired judge who is chairing it, will give his opening remarks. We'll then have 2 days of opening statements from those affected and their lawyers acting on behalf of thousands of people who believe there is a case to answer here. Then they'll adjourn and the evidence proper will begin next spring.
Paul, thank you.